Hi guys, I've read the prompt guide for NVIDIA, Anthropic, Google, and OpenAI, so you don't have to. And then in this video, I will talk about what are the techniques that you need to do in order to have a successful prompt. So we will break down it into 5 different categories, and the last one is the most important one. You don't want to miss that. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Welcome everyone to the channel, AI Fun Fact for All. For those of you who are new to this channel, my name is Pedram. I have a PhD in computer science, and this channel we talk about AI and machine learning and how can we use it in order to improve our efficiency. As we mentioned in this video, I'm going to talk about these prompt guide that help you write this prompt in the most effective way, and I will use these guides from the different sources, so it is agnostic of what model you are going to choose. So it is something that's definitely going to be useful for you regardless of the model that you are trying to use. The first one I'm going to talk about is framework. The framework is important because inside that you will define the 4 different important components. The first one is persona. That's where you define what is basically the role of that agent. Then you define the context, what information you want to give. Then you define your task, what needs to be accomplished, and finally the format. So to be more clear about each of them, inside the persona you actually define who exactly is that AI. So for example, in a Google example, you can say that you're a programming manager with 10 years of experience in this, and you are going to help me accomplish this task. And so this is important. We have already talked about this before, but the whole idea that why is important, because these are general purpose models, and you need to kind of fire a specific portion that is designed for that specific task. When you do that clearly in the beginning, it's know that that portion should be considered, and it provide a better response to you for your specific task. So that's definitely very important. The next one is basically the task. So what you want to accomplish, that can be basically the end goal of for example, what you want to do. So it can be something like draft executive summary for this. So you want to be as precise as possible, and you want to avoid any vague information. So for example, you can say plan activities for each day that includes team bonding activities and time for deeper strategic work. So as you can see, it is very concise, but at the same time very straightforward and clear on what we are going to do. The next one is the context. So the context is actually very important. I already talked about the context engineering. I put the link at the end. So this is basically every information that is required for the LLM in order to provide the response to you. For that one, you need to make sure that you have enough information that can be done through the RAG. If you have some database information, this can be done through your MCPs or any other sort of information. If you have it, like for example, some of your IPs, you can basically provide it in there. And last but not least, you have your format. So inside the format, you need to provide what is the expected output going to look like. For example, you're going to say output me in the output format, in the table format, or you're going to say okay, put it up to 350 words or something. So this actually makes sure that it provides you the response in a format that you like. Or for example, you can say respond in the JSON format. This kind of information that we're going to talk about, all of them goes under the umbrella of basically your framework. So this definition of framework doesn't matter if you want to do it as someone who just wants to chat with the LLM, or someone who wants to build an AI application, or someone in the middle. Regardless, if you try to provide this framework, you're gonna get more consistent result with the better performance. You can actually even provide more enriched data by providing some examples. So the examples, why is it important? Because we all know that LLMs are actually pattern followers. So what they do usually is that they are given a lot amount of data, and what they want to do is the next token generation based on what they already have seen. So if you provide an example of what your expected behavior looks like, that can definitely help them in order to understand more. We already have talked about it again in the channel. We have the single shot, and then we have few shot examples. So if you want to provide one example, that's going to be a single few shot, because you have provide multiple examples, and for multiple probably stick with 3 to 4. Don't go beyond unless you have very specific and niche example. And then how your example should look like, it has to have two sort of like behavior. So the first one is that it should be relevant, and the other one, it should be diverse. So why do we mean it should be relevant? It should be relevant to the task and the context that you have provided. It shouldn't go too much out of scope, but it should also have to be diverse, which means that it should cover pretty much all of the edge cases or the nuances that you might see in your actual examples. So if you provide it in that case, then you're guaranteed that you can get coverage on some of those edge cases, because what LLM does is that it tries to provide your response even if it is not 100% sure, because that's how the data was trained. So if it doesn't have enough information, it will try to provide something that might not align with what you want. So in those edge cases, you definitely want to have provided some example to know that what is the expected behavior. And last but not least, regarding how you can write all of this theme inside the text, it is basically the best one is to use the markdown format. So why do we say markdown format? So this is something that OpenAI actually specifically mentioned, that it is the best when you want to provide information to the LLM, because it can clearly specify the different sections, heading and subheadings. You can provide a heading, subheading for your main task, for your basically persona, and then you can provide the subheading for if you have multiple stages of tasks that you want to accomplish, and then you can use bold or italic for some important portion inside your a prompt. Then you can use Markdown Live in order to see what the LLM actually see when you are given the prompt to the LLM. After we have our framework ready, now we need to see that what should we write inside it. So this is basically tell us how we can write an effective prompt. So obviously the first one is that use natural language. So if you are doing some specific sort of like jargons and some style that the LLM are not very familiar with, avoid that. Try to convert it into something that is as close as possible to natural language. The other one is be specific and iterate. So this one we specifically talked about it in the previous video, that why GPT-5 you get worse results is because those are specifically designed to follow exact instruction, so you need to be very specific with them. And the iterate is that when you provide a response, don't expect the first response to be the best. You need to reiterate and update your prompt as you go to get a better result. The conciseness and avoid complexity is also the very important component in here. You don't want to basically avoid that. That's definitely something that you want to keep an eye on. And having all of this together will help you to come up with something that can actually be helpful to the LLM in terms of what you want to put inside those specific section of the framework. For multi-prompting, we have 3 different approaches. The first one is sequential. So for the sequential, what will happen is that you're gonna give one version of the prompt, and then the output of that can go inside another prompt. So for example, let's say in the first step you're going to say, okay, summarize this, and on the next step you're going to say, okay, given this summary, convert it to something that a high school student can understand. So when you would do this, in cases when the task is hard and it is not able to do all of it at the same time. Remember always that the LLMs are provided in order to make sure that the task that they're doing can actually reach the end. If you have a question that is too hard and too complex to do, they won't actually, in order to reach the end, they try to simplify the problem with the loss of accuracy, but they at least are guaranteed to reach an end. So if you have a very complex, don't try to write everything together, try to break it down to some sequential. In number 2, we have parallel. So parallel happens when you have a very complex task, but you are not sure that the first response that you get is the best one. So what you will do is that you run it into multiple basic calls, and then you compare them. You don't necessarily know which one is the correct one. You don't know the expected behavior. So very special case. You don't know which one is the best, and you want to, for example, use the majority vote, like who got the most result out of it, and then you're gonna choose based on that. And in number 3, we have the modular. So this one is the most popular one. You see it a lot in the cases where you basically have a template, and then inside it you have some placeholders that will dynamically be populated based on the specific application or the task that you are in. So in those cases, your structure is the same, so your LLM that you want can actually see those repeatedly, and you can kind of guarantee the experience, but at the same time some of the specific portion are dynamically updated. But all of these should be remembered that needs to be done only on very complex tasks. Otherwise, as OpenAI mentioned, like a single well-crafted prompt is more efficient than multi-prompting. So be aware that you use it carefully and only if it is needed. On number 4, we have testing. So testing is important when we want to basically see that, okay, how we are performing. Because by the end of the day, the LLM responses are completely random, and you cannot write one script that works for everything else. So these are all experimentation now. And you need to test them to see that which one is working. So what Google and OpenAI actually suggest is that you try to basically benchmark it against some subsample of your actual data that you're going to see. So you provided the annotation or the expected behavior for them, and then you're gonna run it multiple times to see that how it is working against those benchmarks. And then what you will do, you analyze the data, you try to see how it is working against it, and then you try to iterate over to different sections and try to improve the performance. While you're doing this, you need to make sure that you are considering basically the quality of your results as well. So what this means is that you don't want to overfit to your matrix that you have in your benchmark. At the same time, you also need to have some quality assurance that you provide the response that are working generalizable and not just for the subsamples that you have. The last but not least are the guardrails. So guardrails are the most undervalued components inside the prompting. This is important especially for basically the business owners when they want to make sure that they have the control over their IP. So this portion, definitely, if you guys are not doing for the business, it doesn't relevant for you, but regardless, this one is actually important, and there are 3 different ways that you can do in order to make sure that you are following the policy of your work and you are not exposing any of your information and so on. So the first one is basically instruction guardrails. So for the instruction guardrails, what you want to do is that you want to make sure that you don't want it to answer something that you don't want it to answer. So you want to protect your actual data, and for some other cases you want to, for example, handle hallucination. So this is also another thing that we see a lot. You want to focus on something like I don't know rather than guessing some response. So these are the things that you can specifically provide some instruction, usually towards the end, so it attends more to it, and then it will provide to avoid any irrelevant information, any hallucination, or any final check that you want to do on the quality of your response. The second one is actually the output guardrail. So the output guardrail are basically the responses that you want to get at the output. You want to make sure that you do fact check. You want to make sure that we cannot ask or follow the company's safety rules, to put this in general. For that, you can do different things. One way is that you have another LLM after that will take care of this. So it will look at the response and then act as a judge or act as a critic, and it will say that, okay, is this output compliant with the company rules or compliance with whatever rules that you care about. So for whatever reason, if the first LLM actually got hijacked or provided some responses that are not aligned with what you wanted, it will be catch on the second LLM. And the last one is actually using something called human in the loop. So human in the loop are actually essentials when we are working on some very specific and very special type of cases that are very important. So for example, medical cases or legal advice or financial advice. So these are some specific case and sensitive cases where you don't want to basically do the judgment just by LLM. So you want to not make it fully automated. You want to have an actual human to look at it and do approval on it before they get released. And there you have it, guys. We went over 5 different components of how to write an effective prompt regardless of what LLM we are trying to use. We went over lots of skills and different consideration that we need to make when we want to write an effective prompt, regardless of whether it's for just a normal chat all the way to if you want to have AI application for your business. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like it. More importantly, subscribe to the channel so you see more videos like this. If you want to see another video, we have this one that I talk about the context engineering and how is it different from the other type of basically prompt engineering. Or you can watch this video that I talk about why GPT-5 is actually worse and how you can make sure that you provide a precise prompt so you get the response better. Thanks for watching and see you until the next one.